Once was a swagman camped by a billabong under the shade of a coolabah tree. As he sat, as he watched and waited while his billy boiled, who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. This is Arnie Lukes at the Crossroads. We have the Home Forum today, and I'd like to welcome our Home Forum panel members. Welcome Judy from Victoria, Judy Auchterlonie,
Thanks, Arnie. Morning, both of you.
and Beata Lukes from Adelaide. Welcome, Beata.
Good morning, everyone.
Okay, good morning. Now, I'd like to highlight a couple of things that have just transpired recently in the press, and I think I'm attempting to explain how things work from my point of view, and they're not necessarily immediately apparent. So the first thing I'll bring up is this Monsanto loses a landmark cancer lawsuit and 289 million in damages. And I believe that's a picture there, an illustration of the jury people, the jury members. Now I'll also bring up um, another website, and this is in regard to Andrew Bolt. Tinfoil Hatter blames Rupert Murdoch for what's transpired in Australia recently, and this is the changing of our Prime Minister. And this link here, his bizarre conspiracy theorising, is this man, New Daily, the editor for the New Daily, is taking us through the exercise. Bruce Guthrie, I'll get it out without lisping. He's taking us through the intellectual exercise that Rupert Murdoch orchestrated what's going on, and he was principally behind it. And of course, a lot of people played into that, into his hands. Now, Kevin Rudd, former Prime Minister Kevin Rudd, his article in the Sydney Morning Herald in regard to the same thing, and he comes to the same conclusion. Further down here, I saw it on the was the significant influence that Rupert Murdoch had over people. And the actual outcome of the changing of the guard, changing of the prime ministership, is fascinating because he's behind it all. Now, I put an argument to you that in regard to, I'm just going to bring it up, in regard to policy, policy is critical. In regard to policy, nothing has changed. We've changed the guard, but nothing has changed. Look at this heading. Uh-oh, Morrison sticks with the Paris Climate Agreement. So he's got to be. This is Andrew Bolt's blog. Morrison must prove he's no Turnbull, but the policy continues. And I think that's the point that I'd like to get at today, ladies and gentlemen. The policy continues. It doesn't matter who's in what deck chair. The centralising policy, our alignment with the United Nations climate change, climate agreement, world government is still continuing. And so when it comes to the Monsanto, it comes back to us is okay, we've got Monsanto there. They've been found guilty. I would expect they will continue to fight forever on this particular court case outcome because there's $289 million in it, but also, of course, is their name. And I think that's fascinating. Policy won't change. Policy won't change unless we decide to go after it and force change. Beata.
Yes, they might fight, and they, of course, the name has been pulled through the mud, and mud sticks, and hopefully, it will wake up a lot of people to the fact that the products that they are pushing on the entire world are not safe. They have not enough warnings. They have not been um, approved in a sense that you can say you can use it without any reverberance. It will always be found in the food you're spraying the Roundup or Ranger Pro on. It's proven now. So people are dying now after using the product, working with it, and there is hundreds of lawsuits in the waiting to go through the courts because of that fact.
Thank you,
They
Beata.
are.
Thank you, Beata. That's an excellent opening salvo. That Monsanto being held accountable in one trial, hundreds of lawsuits coming in behind, and the question I ask myself in regard to this is, what's my engagement with it? Well, I've got the occasional neighbour who uses it. I attempt to educate them onto the dangers of glyphosate as a part of the formula that goes into Roundup, but also my local council. And I think that that's most important, that we consider that we can actually engage in this process and minimise our toxic load. And when you bear in mind that curbside spraying is done by council and they're using these products or similar products, and I've already had some communication with our local council, and I'm going to continue. I must. Otherwise, I throw my hands up in the air and hand over responsibility or power to someone else to make those decisions, and I have no intention of doing that. Judy.
Yes, Arnie, we can't stop, can we? We must not stop. However, we can be an influence. However, we can touch somebody, inform somebody, wake people up. It's an ongoing thing, and it'll always be the same for each of us while we're still alive. And the Roundup glyphosate thing, I'm hoping really that wakes people up throughout the world, especially in Australia, because it's where I live, to the fact that we must question. We must question all these products that are being thrust upon us and used willy nilly, and Roundup, and of course, is used so much now. Uh, I'm really hoping that will alert people to start looking
Thank you, Judy. That's right.
what's going on.
What's going on? That's exactly right. What's going on? I went for a recent drive through some wine regions, and beautiful to look at. But I noted at the base of all of the vines there were no weeds. There were no weeds, and I thought, aha, they've either done a wonderful job of ploughing and turning the soil in, which it didn't look like, or they're using some type of knockdown spray. And so that means that they're putting it around the vines. Let's put one and one together. I think it clearly says two. They're spraying it around the base of the vine so that the vines no longer have to compete with the weeds for nutrients in the soil. That's the argument. I believe that Christine Jones would counter that argument, and so would Bill Mollison and the permaculture group. But anyway, they're knocking the weeds down so that all the nutrients go into the vines and into the wine. It's in our food chain as wine, but it's also Roundup Ready seed. There's ag seed out there. Um, Enormous different types. I don't know what's going on in Australia. I think there's some sort of embargo in South Australia. There's some sort of embargo for genetically modified. But Roundup Ready, genetically modified, it's all tied in with seed monopoly and the food chain. And so they've got some big market potential. This is part of the thinking that's gone into it. It's not just the potential for cancer, but it's also the opportunity for monopoly. And I think we need to understand that very clearly. When I showed you the articles of Rupert Murdoch's involvement in the political process in Australia, this is all about monopoly. World government, that's what monopoly is all about. Whether it's a communist dictatorship or a capitalist, some sort of utopian technocracy, it's still about monopoly. Beata.
Yes, when you're choosing your wine, perhaps choose organic one. They must be using some kind of pest and other controls, but they definitely not using Roundup. It would show in the wine. How would you keep your certification then? No way. Um, with the policy, yes, we have consecutive governments coming and going, and the policy continue. And of course, they tie us up in all sorts of international agreements. And I presume that we would be hit with incredible damages payouts to Monsanto if we stopped using the product across the country. But boy, I'm waiting for that day and keeping my fingers crossed.
So, thank you, Beata. Sorry for cutting across. I mute my mic in between so I don't make too much noise. Um, that brings us up to another completely different direction, but coming to the same conclusion. And have I forgot my point? The TPP, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, trade agreements between nations. If a company, by a passing of a law, if the Australian government decides to pass a law and uh, Monsanto loses money as a consequence of this law, they are entitled to sue. Now, I find that fascinating because our politicians have gone into these agreements with their eyes open and, oh, this is the best thing since Canberra. This is what we need to do. But in actual fact, is it? We can't even control what comes into our own nation. I find that abhorrent. Our hands are being tied behind our back, and we're being forced to take these things whether we want them or not. And I suggest to you, our listeners, that you can do something about it. The first thing you can do is start contacting your local council, present the argument that Monsanto has lost the case, that Roundup is a carcinogen. The World Health Organization has acknowledged it as a carcinogen, and that we are entitled not to be exposed to it. And if our councils must or insist that this is something they must do, then we've got to hold the council accountable. And the first person is the Chief Executive Officer. They have to be held accountable because, as I understand it with councils, there is only one employed by the council, and that is the CEO. And everyone else works for the CEO. So he's your target, or she's your target. Judy.
Yeah, you've got me going there, Arnie. I've written that down. I'll get onto that this week. It's no doubt personal responsibility is what we have to aim for. The buck stops with us. We've said it before. Um, if we all work as individuals and spread the word and do our bit, sooner or later it's going to change, and we'll just have to wait and see. I guess if we manage to get people thinking and stop using Roundup, glyphosate, um, how Monsanto would react if they started losing all that income.
Mm, that's right. And I see it as an interesting debate because the issue with Roundup, the issue with genetically modified, is about part of it is about monopoly, and part of it is about freedom of choice. And in order to have your little bit of heaven on earth in your own backyard, you can control what you do and don't do, and I think spraying and not spraying are vital parts of it. And I think the permaculture group, the organic groups, have got some interesting alternatives. So if you want to manage pests and maintain vitality, life forces within the soil and what you grow, I think it's marvellous what they're doing because they are providing viable alternatives. But it all comes down to the individual. You have to make a life choice. If you sit on your hands and let someone else make the decisions for you, you're going to get bullied and pushed around. And the thing is that freedom comes at a price. Freedom comes at a price. You're either going to accept the chains that you've had imposed on you, those chains of slavery, or you're going to say, no, I'm a free person. Well, you can't just be a free person and just tick a box or put numbers in a ballot paper. You've actually got to engage in your freedom, and it's an ongoing daily wrestle. It's a daily struggle. You have to be moral and you have to be responsible, and that's exactly the same criteria that you demand from the public servant. They're free to do their job, but they have to be moral and responsible. Each and every one of them. Politician, public servant, anyone who's on the public payroll, anyone who makes decisions that affect other people have to be held accountable. And they have to be willing to be held accountable. That's what morality and responsibility is all about. Beata.
Yes, it's our moral responsibility to get on with that and try to at least limit it. And I'm glad you mentioned genetically modified food because Monsanto is responsible for producing all this new plant material and it's spreading all over. And we know the sad situation of the farmers in India when they don't own their own seed anymore. They've got to buy it from Monsanto every year. That's why they committing suicides in the hundreds and thousands. It's terrible, really. Apparently, there is. I have listened to Jeffrey Smith, by the way, the other day, and he's one of those pioneers of fighting Monsanto and other producers of genetically modified food. And he was talking mm, uh, about 33 different diseases or syndromes that are now recognized in humans that are caused by genetically modified food. And of course, the doctors are prescribing their patients not to eat genetically modified food. And now imagine the situation, especially in America, where there is corn and corn syrup is added to everything to sweeten it up, peas, so many vegetables, tomatoes, capsicum. I won't go into listing all of them, but it's really difficult to avoid buying that and eating it. So it accumulates in your body. Kidneys, liver cannot filter it anymore, and you're falling a victim.
Mm,
Where is the responsibility?
mm,
Monsanto won, and whether they pay 250 million or 250 billion, it doesn't change the fact that the product is still on the market.
mm. Yeah, that's right. The
It's
the
terrible.
policy the policy continues. It's not changing, and the fact is, as we said before at the start of this, governments come, governments go, but the policy continues. The Trans-Pacific Partnership was an illustration that they're both agreeing with it. The Lima Declaration handing over our industry to third world countries, and we come back to Roundup Ready products, Roundup Ready seed that comes out, and these are all marketing advantages, but at the same time, the end objective. The end objective, of course, is monopoly. And monopoly at what price? Your health. Your health has got a lot to do with it, and but probably equally as important, because you may be affected by genetically modified. You may be affected by the glyphosate, whatever it is, the Roundup product. You may be affected by either of these, and the thing is, you need to have freedom of choice to choose those things which you, as you understand it, are actually going to derive benefit for you for the well-being of your body. It's your choice. But in Monopoly, you don't get a choice. You only get one choice, and that's what's being proposed. And of course, that's what we've got to resist. It comes down to you making those choices. Judy.
Yeah, Arnie, once we are aware of the truth about anything, and in particular our topic this morning, once we know, we got to make a choice, and that choice um, cannot be avoided. You either do something positive, or you just let it slide and keep using products that are going to be bad for your health and those in your family.
Thank you, Judy. That's exactly right. I see this as an ongoing, and it really is a wrestle. It's a fight. We're not only fighting for our freedom, we're fighting for our health. We're fighting for our family's health, the well-being of our community. I mean, it's these things they're outside our front door if we choose to let them there, and they really are. I mean, you to go diagonal to your neighbour's property, they're spraying Roundup on the curb. You're only 20 metres away from this stuff. And does it affect you? Well, I know families that every time the curbs are sprayed, they seem to get ill, and it's frustrating. And that's a true story. This isn't um, wives' tales, husband tales. This is true stories, and they are really mindful of it. And so they want to know when they're spraying so that their children cannot be around. They deliberately avoid that spraying time. And we've got valleys that are riddled with these products, and we call them Death Valley. Beata.
Yes. We thought it looks like Tuscany driving through McLaren Valley, but um, when you think about it, it's terribly polluted. There is no way to describe it any other way. Yeah. Um, Speaking of new prime minister, oh, congratulations, Mr.
Right.
Morrison, and I hope you will be morally responsible for turning the tide on the Paris Agreement and freeing us of the shackles. Why are we paying for all those things? By the way, could you get back those $444 million from Barrier Reef? What are they going to do with it? I suppose it all goes into advertising the reef as
Uh,
an endangered reef.
mm,
That's
mm, yeah. Just cutting back to the, of course, the Andrew Bolt blog. Morrison sticks with Paris, so I don't think we're going to get much change from him. I think he's just going to hold the ground, and I think he is, in some ways, has been selected. I'll use the word specifically, selected, because he's going to be presented as some conservative alternative, and he's no alternative whatsoever. He's continuing on with the program, and I watched the outworking. I'm going to bring this website up again because I think it's just so interesting. Is the You watch the dialectics being done, the dialectics of where Rupert Murdoch uses his shock jocks and his other media people to present a compelling case against Turnbull, and then you see the left wing doing exactly the same thing through their organisations such as Get Up and the Sydney Morning Herald, The Age, the ABC. So you've got this dialectics, you've got the clash of the two opposites. And what do you get as a consequence? The same policy. More centralisation of power, closer to a dictatorship. We're moving more and more towards a dictatorship each and every day. It's not stopping. It's not stopping. And it will only stop with the individual. When the individual, you, I, me, us, choose to do something about it. And that's what this whole forum is about. We have to choose to do something about it, or we're going to move into a complete dictatorship and lose our freedoms completely. Judy.
Oh, yes. Um, I often wonder with politics and political parties, the members, MPs change, but the bureaucrats don't necessarily, and they obviously are responsible for a fair bit of what goes on politically, I think.
Hmm.
I don't know. I can't verify that, but some of them are fairly powerful individuals. I often think politicians get elected and they say they're pleased to be chosen to serve the people of Australia, and they immediately become our master and we become their servants.
Mm, That's interesting because their actual title is public servant, not public master, but public servant. And there is a book, I think it's just up above Beata's head there on the right. I think it's called The Passing of Parliament, and it talks about this bureaucracy, this permanent bureaucracy that sits behind the scenes. And if you've ever taken the trouble to read some of the acts that come through Parliament and are passed, you'll find that generally there's a disclaimer at the end of the act. And the disclaimer says something to the effect that if it's not in this act, then it will be in the regulations. If it's not in the regulations, then it comes back to the minister. And the minister, once he makes the determination, it is exactly the same validity as the act, and therefore it becomes law. Now that's in defiance of our history of common law, and that was that the law was known and accepted throughout the land. It was common. Everyone knew it, everyone understood it. And now we've got arbitrary law. And that arbitrary law is where the minister can make a determination. Hello, where's the law in that? Where's the common law in that? Where's the clear understanding in that? I was talking to a young bloke the other day. We were talking about lights on cars. And he was telling me that there's certain type of lights were allowed on cars, and then the light company took the government to the courts, and they won, and so the lights changed, and then they were able to have two lights, and then certain types of lights, and then three lights, and then strip lights, and it was a rotating conveyor belt of new findings, of new outcomes, and that to me is fascinating. How are you supposed to know what you can and can't do legally to your car when it's a conveyor belt of new laws or interpretations of new laws? You can't. That's not common law. That's law by edict. That's law by bureaucrat, and there's certainly nothing historically within the community that they understand these things. Beata.
Yes. I've got a beautiful example here of Federal Drug Administration, which refuses, even though a year passed since a treaty of Minamata was signed, and this treaty deals with use of dental mercury. So that was August 2017, and the treaty, the FDA was banned by that treaty, so they should be starting acting on it. But of course, FDA never acts very quickly. And in America, sadly, the amalgam is still being hailed as something safe to use, of course. So, on the other hand, the American dentists, apparently half of them, approximately half of them, are already discovered that amalgam is not safe and stopped using it in their practice. So the consumer is winning if they chance upon a dentist that doesn't use it, or if they know, they would definitely go there. On the other hand, European Union needs to be congratulated because they have decided that from the 1st of July 2018, children under 15 are not to be fitted with amalgam fillings. Total ban on under 15s in European Union.
Mm,
So this is beautiful. This is a step in right direction.
Thank you for that, Beata. That's wonderfully put. That you've got one that seems to be in alignment. I'll use those words carefully. In alignment with the wishes and direction or policy of the of big agri, big pharma. They're really one and the same company, and then you've got another entity, the European Union, a central power. I'm not for central powers at all. I completely endorse Brexit, but the point is that the European Union is opposed to it. And is mercury amalgam good for you? Is it not good for you? I don't know. Beata, your hands up.
I just must add that there was consumer push throughout Europe for eliminating amalgam, and this is the result of it. Treaty by itself does not work very well with the bureaucracies,
Hmm.
but with the consumer power, it does. It
Ha-
achieves the
okay,
achieves the goal.
just a question without notice, Beata, while we're still on the camera with you. Is this in Europe? Do they put fluoride in water?
I think there is a lot of countries that don't.
Hmm.
Sweden, Finland, Norway, all those countries. Um, and the list is growing. I think even Austria, I can't remember now, I am sorry, but there should be an update
Mm-hmm.
on somewhere on the computer on the
Mm.
website.
No worries. Thank you for
But
that.
there is a lot of.
Yep. Thank you for that. It's to me, it's interesting because we've got these what are really questionable medical practices. Questionable. I mean, agri spraying. Surely that is a medical issue, and surely the medical science should be leading the way on this. Now, this $289 million court case that Monsanto has lost, and as I suggest to you, they will fight to the very end on this one. Um, okay, that shows or demonstrates that in the view of the jury, that it's a responsible for this person's cancer. Okay, so Monsanto could have done better, didn't, and continued to do it. Now we see the governments with the governments, the bureaucracy, are using Roundup curbside spraying, and they're using it everywhere. Farmers are using it, Roundup Ready seed, and plants, Roundup Ready, and so we go through this whole thing and saying our toxic load of Roundup is going through the roof, and of course at the same time we're seeing chronic disease, and these debilitating long-term diseases are coming that weren't apparent years ago. Now, I'm not a doctor, I'm not going to correlate, but I'm suggesting that we need to actually look at these things. Fluoride, it's not naturally forming. The fluoride that we get is from a fertilizer factory, aluminium industry and fertilizer factory that's poured into the water. You get a drop of it on your skin, it will burn through your arm. It will go through the bone and come out the other side. That's the acid that's in that they're putting in the water. And that's what we're suggesting is good for our teeth. And then you've got amalgam or mercury fillings, amalgams of mercury, aluminium, put in your mouth. Mercury is a toxin. Aluminium is a toxin. What are we doing? Our toxic load is going through the roof. Now, I know we're 32 minutes in this. We could keep going forever, but what I'm going to do is just call for closing comments and we'll pick it up in the next forum. Judy.
Oh, Arnie, GMO foods, how do you avoid them unless you just eat what you grow in your own backyard and then your seed? If you have to purchase seed, you do wonder, but we have to try, we have to have a go, we have to be responsible when we know when the truths start filtering into us. We have to research. It was never been easier to do some research. Now we have the internet, and the choice is ours. The responsibility is ours.
Thank you for that, Judy. That's beautifully put. Closing comments, Beata.
Hmm. What should I say? Maybe just read Wendell Berry again and Frances Hutchinson. She's very big on cutting down, reducing pollution, and the responsibility that lays with that. And of course, social credit is the way out of it. Because if the corporate grid is doing all the polluting and making everyone work more and produce more, which nobody have got enough money to buy in anyway, um, why are we continuing on this mad rat trap or mouse trap?
Mm,
Why?
mm,
There is a solution. It's called Douglas Social Credit.
mm. Thank you for that, Beata. That's beautifully put. And I'm just going to cut across to our ALOR website here, and I'll highlight to our viewers that we've got hundreds of reading material in there, and you also have the internet search facilities on the internet. And I'm just going to bring up. Actually, I won't. What I'll do is I'll close because I'm not ready for it. But I'll close on this one. But I'll just remind you that the internet is there for research and it's ongoing. Um, don't tell me you can't find out. You can find out. It's there if you look. And it's in order to hold on to your freedoms, in order to establish your freedoms, you have to be moral and responsible, and so does your public servant, moral and responsible. And if they're the fascist, the dictator in charge, they're not moral, they're not responsible. And in your morality, being responsible and being free, you can be environmentally sustainable. You can be environmentally responsible. And by growing as much as you can, by looking after your small footprint, which is your home, and the clothes that you wear, and all those sorts of decisions that you make, you can be morally and environmentally responsible. You don't have to think that I've got to go in a certain direction and hand power to some world authority that's going to do the right thing. That world authority is Monsanto, dressed up in another label, but it's still Monsanto. This is Arnie Lukes at the Crossroads. Once was a swagman camped by a billabong under the shade of a coolabah tree. As he sat, as he watched and waited while his billy boiled, who'll come a waltzing Matilda with me?